What if you had a master key? One single idea that could unlock not just one or two tricky problems, but, well, everything. I'm talking about the biggest secrets of the universe, and at the same time, something as personal as the best way to raise a child.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're exploring a philosophy that claims to be that master key. This is a guide to the core thinking of the Conjecture Institute, an organization that believes they've found the fundamental principle behind all progress.
Right, so before we start unlocking any of these massive doors, we need to get a really good look at the key itself. What is this foundational idea? It all kicks off with a particular branch of philosophy.
And that branch is called epistemology. Now, I know it sounds a little academic, but it's really just the theory of knowledge. It asks the biggest questions out there. What does it even mean to know something? And crucially, how do we get more of it? For the Conjecture Institute, the answer to that question is the master key.
The Institute's specific version of epistemology is called critical rationalism, and it pretty much throws out the common ideas about how we learn, that we get knowledge from an authority figure or just by observing the world around us. Instead, it says knowledge grows through a totally different and much more active process.
And here it is. This is the heart of the whole philosophy right here. Knowledge grows via conjecture and criticism. So what's that mean in plain English? It means we make creative guesses. That's the conjecture, and then we try our absolute hardest to find the flaws in those guesses. That's the criticism. Progress isn't about being right all the time. It's about being really good at correcting our mistakes.
Okay, so we've got our key. Now let's see what it can do. And the Institute doesn't start small. They go right for two of the biggest, toughest doors in all of science and technology: fundamental physics and artificial general intelligence.
In physics, the Institute points to a huge roadblock they call instrumentalism. This is the view that scientific theories are basically just fancy calculators. They're useful for making predictions, but they don't necessarily have to describe what's really going on. The Institute says no, that's not good enough. They argue for realism, the idea that our best theories are our best explanations of how the world actually is.
And when you start taking theories seriously as real explanations, whoa, the consequences are huge. For quantum mechanics, it leads them straight to the many worlds interpretation. That wild idea that every possible outcome of a quantum event actually happens in its own separate universe. They argue it's the only way to be a true realist. And they're not stopping there. They're even trying to frame epistemology itself as a law of physics. Now let's jump over to artificial intelligence, where they spot a very similar issue. Most AI today is built on pattern matching, just looking at tons of data from the past to guess the future. But the Institute argues that's a dead end if you want to create true artificial general intelligence. For them, AGI won't be a pattern matcher, it'll be a person capable of creative guesses.
Just let that sink in for a second. The goal isn't just a smarter chatbot, it's to create an entity that can do what we do, make up new creative ideas about how the world works, and then test them. This is a completely different way of thinking about AGI. It's also why they think doomsday scenarios are off the mark, because a real AGI, a creative person, would also be able to criticize and correct its own bad ideas, including moral ones. All right, so from the far reaches of physics and AI, let's bring this master key back down to earth. How does it apply to us, to how we organize our societies? Well, it turns out that conjecture and criticism can totally reshape how we look at things like economics and history.
This chart lays it out perfectly. Take economics. They reject models that try to predict human behavior like they're billiard balls on a table. Why? Because people have ideas. We're not predictable. Instead, they lean toward ideas like Austrian economics, which sees an economy as this huge, decentralized network of knowledge, where millions of people are all making their own conjectures, their own bets. And in history, they argue the main engine isn't just material struggle, it's the evolution of ideas themselves. Good ideas spread, bad ones die out.
This brings us to a topic that hits close to home for almost everyone: how we raise and teach our kids. And on this subject, the Institute's philosophy says we need to throw out a very, very common idea that is just plain wrong. They call it the bucket theory of the mind. You've seen this in action. It's the idea that a child's brain is an empty bucket, and the teacher's job is just to pour facts into it. The Institute says this is a huge mistake. Knowledge can't be poured. It has to be created from scratch, inside the mind of the learner.
So if kids aren't buckets, how in the world do they learn? Well, take a look at this process. First, they guess solutions to problems they face. That's conjecture. Then, they test those guesses out in the real world. That's criticism. Finally, they fix their own mistakes and come up with better ideas.
Now, does that cycle sound familiar? It should. It's the exact same process scientists use. Kids are basically little scientists.
Okay, for our final door, we're going somewhere you might never expect this kind of philosophy to go. The world of art and beauty. Seriously, can a theory of knowledge actually tell us anything new about aesthetics?
You bet it can. The Institute is working on a theory called wonderism, and this is a really big idea. It suggests that beauty isn't just in the eye of the beholder. It's an objective quality, something real. And just like our scientific knowledge can get better over time, our knowledge of what is truly beautiful can also grow and improve. And this is where you see the incredible unifying power of this whole philosophy. If wonderism is on the right track, it means our ideas about what makes a song or a painting beautiful aren't just random tastes. They're theories. They're fallible ideas that we can argue about, criticize, and improve. The very same method of conjecture and criticism that unlocks physics also unlocks art.
So after that whirlwind tour through all these different fields, let's bring it all back home. Because this isn't meant to be just some abstract theory for academics. The claim is that it's a practical tool that you and I can use every single day. This really ties it all together, doesn't it? It doesn't matter if we're talking about building an AGI, understanding the cosmos, or just helping a kid learn to tie their shoes. The engine of progress is always the same. It's this constant search for better explanations, and we find them through a cycle of making bold guesses and then being ruthlessly honest about finding their flaws. So if this whole theory holds up, it means that everything we believe right now is just our current best guess. It's temporary, it's fallible, and it's ready to be improved upon. Which leaves us with one last very personal question. What bad idea in your own life are you ready to correct?